My name is Marina Miller, and this is a podcast reading of the Geography 364 Assignment 3 Film Review. Cesnam, The City Before the City, is a documentary which tells a story of modern activism. I review this film from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations where I live, work, and study. As many celebrate 153 years since Canada's Confederation in July 2020, others reject this nationhood and instead recognize centuries of Indigenous resistance. Cesnam is a great example of this, highlighting several Musqueam voices talking about removal from the land, depletion of resources, and theft of cultural materials. Cesnam is a Musqueam site near the Arthur Lang Bridge and the Vancouver Airport. It was revealed in 2012 that this inconspicuous lot held buried human remains and materials, but the province allowed digging for a new building development. Musqueam's fight to protect this ancient village is a testament to their duty and responsibility to their people. The film is directed towards anyone from Turtle Island and beyond, but especially the uninvited settlers here. It's a film made by Musqueam people to highlight the fight for Cesnam and the ongoing environmental issues which they face. Vancouver is commonly known to welcome people from all over the world to work and live here, but there is still so much colonial neglect for this land and its First Peoples, environmentally, economically, and socially. Musqueam people have lived here since time immemorial, their territory stretching far north to Howe Sound and south to Tawasin. They now live on one of the smallest reserves in the province. Cesnam was designated as a heritage site in 1933, so there was a lot of confusion and anger when developers started to dig up bones from their resting place. This was an act of erasure for Musqueam people and their ancestors. In response, Musqueam members sat at the site to hold a 200-day vigil and eventually blocked the Arthur Lang Bridge. The province saw this strategy and stopped the construction. It was a solidified heritage site after that, but the government made Musqueam purchase a portion of the land. This makes it seem like the government simply views Cesnam as property, which is a colonial concept in the first place, and not as inherently valuable. As said in the film, it's not just a midden or a burial site, it's a place of living. This story of Cesnam exemplifies a modern and complex crisis between Indigenous peoples and Canada. Recognizing existing rights and title, not granting it, should be the precedent, but we still have a long way to go. If we consider crisis as a turning point or a time of decision-making, the movement for Cesnam's protection is a crisis for Musqueam. This film poses the vigil and the blockade as key crisis events, but it also is a crisis that's ongoing through fish stock depletion, land theft, and colonial disrespect to this day. Why did they protect Cesnam? Powerfully put in the film, quote, "It's not our place to give up that fight," unquote. They are always fighting for their ancestors, preserving culture, and letting sacred materials rest. Near the end of the film, they call for more robust legislation and action to protect this site and others like it. Many Musqueam sites have been subject to legal and illegal excavations throughout the years, and remains and artifacts are strewn in collections across the world. Something that many settlers don't understand is the connection between Coast Salish peoples and their land. Their worldview since time immemorial is to value the land and water, treating it with mutual respect. Being able to fish, hunt, and have ceremonies keeps Coast Salish culture alive, but government policies and racism have created barriers to this. This is something I learned in Indigenous Studies 186, Coast Salish Studies last term. As Albert McCalsey argues, protecting a place protects culture and peoples. The City Before the City does not go into detail about urban Indigenous crisis in Vancouver, though it was probably not the purpose to discuss things like missing and murdered women, poverty, substance abuse, mental illness, houselessness, and racism. The film does a good job of focusing on the immediate Sea Island and Musqueam region, including Cesnam, and it allows the viewer to feel a personal connection to the interviewees and their stories. The events in this film do not summarize the entire Indigenous colonial urban crisis, but that would be a daunting task. It highlights a narrative on property and site preservation in areas which most settlers do not see hiding in the shadows. I worked at the airport for 8 months in 2019 and didn't know about Cesnam, or that some of my Musqueam co-workers helped organize the vigil in the first place. It's unfortunate that even if you live or work near a traditional site, the government doesn't make an effort to make it known and preserve it. Overall, I see this as a good documentary because it highlights Musqueam voices and their real lived experiences on the land. At the airport, I got to meet some of those people, like Larry Grant and Mary Point, among others. I asked Larry in a language workshop how many people can fluently, or close to fluently, speak Halkomelem. Poignantly, he said that it was the only people in that boardroom, and they couldn't even speak it fully fluently, so the 2 people in the room with me were the only people with that much language knowledge left. This struck me, and it's part of the reason that I pursued Indigenous Studies courses after returning to SFU in the fall. Crisis in the case of Cesnam and the fight for Indigenous sovereignty has the potential to shape Metro Vancouver. As we move towards society valuing Indigenous lives and voices more, it may mean governments granting land back to the original First Nations. We've already seen this recently with Sanok in what is now Kitsilano. This small strip of traditional territory has been designated for a Squamish-led development project. There's potential for remapping and spatial reconciliation through the preservation of sites like Cesnam, which the film demonstrates well. Thank you for listening. My name is Marina Miller.